Great, thank you, Amber. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I am going to share my screen and we will get started. So today we are going to talk about Connecticut Paid Leave and how it applies to workers. As you know, the benefits for Connecticut Paid Leave will begin in January, so we are sure that there are a lot of questions. We're going to try to answer all of them, and as Amber mentioned, if you do have a question, please put it in the Q&A and we will make sure we get to it. Just a quick bio about me. My name is Jessica Vargas. I'm the Chief Marketing and Communications Officer here at the Connecticut Paid Leave Authority. I have a background in communications and broadcast media, which I have worked in for 15 years. And I'm a lifelong Connecticut resident, with the exception of my four-year college stint in Dallas, Texas, where I earned a BA in advertising and a BA in Spanish from Southern Methodist University. So here's what we're going to talk about today. First, we'll give you an overview of the Connecticut Paid Leave Authority. We're going to talk about FMLA, which is the Family and Medical Leave Act, as well as about Connecticut Paid Leave. We'll review the qualifying reasons to apply for leave and or receive benefits. We'll talk about eligibility to be able to apply, how to apply, and we will give you some additional helpful resources at the end where you can get more information. So first, let's talk about the Connecticut Paid Leave Authority. The authority is the quasi-public agency that's responsible for administering the Connecticut Paid Leave program, and we have 5 main areas of focus and responsibility. The first is outreach and engagement, so essentially making sure that everyone who's impacted by Connecticut Paid Leave understands their obligations and what they need to do to be able to take advantage of the benefits when they become available. And that includes not only employees, but also employers, healthcare professionals, and others. We also develop the policies and procedures needed to run this program. We establish the trust fund contribution rate, and we receive the contributions from which benefits will be paid. We approve and audit private plans. That's for businesses who would like to opt out of the public program and instead participate with a private plan. And we will administer claims for paid leave benefits, as I mentioned, starting in January, and we will do that in conjunction with AFLAC, who is the third-party provider we have chosen to help us administer claims. Some key dates for you to be aware of. January 1st of this year was when your employers should have begun deducting contributions from your wages. The contribution rate is 0.5%, and they are deducting that from your paycheck through a payroll deduction, and then they will remit those to us quarterly here at the Paid Leave Authority. In a couple short weeks in December, starting December 1st, we will open our online portal and begin to accept applications for benefits for events that are happening on or after January 1st. And then starting January 1st, we'll actually be able to begin paying out benefits for those qualifying events. Let's talk about who's covered by Connecticut Paid Leave. Most employers who have at least one person working in Connecticut are considered covered employers. That does include nonprofits and private sector employers with a unionized workforce. So a special note for proprietors and self-employed individuals. If you are a sole proprietor or self-employed, you're not obligated to participate in the Connecticut Paid Leave program, but you may choose to opt in if you wish to do so. If you opt in, you must remain in the program for a minimum of 3 years. The contribution rate is the same as for other employees, so 0.5% of self-employment earnings. And a sole proprietor, even if he or she chooses not to opt in for themselves, they must withhold and remit contributions if they have employees. There are a couple of exceptions for who is not covered under Connecticut Paid Leave. So employees of the federal government are not covered. Unionized employees of the state of Connecticut, except as to covered public employees, are also not covered. Same for municipalities and local or regional boards of education, unless they have covered public employees. And employees of non-public elementary or secondary schools are also not covered. Then there are a few other entities that are exempt as a result of them being covered by other laws, and those include railroad workers, folks who might live in Connecticut but are employed by the government of another state. So perhaps they live in Connecticut, but they work for the state government of Massachusetts. They would not be covered. Employees of sovereign nations, That does include employees of Foxwoods and Mohegan Sun. They are not covered. Employees who work in interstate commerce, who work in Connecticut but live in another state and don't pay taxes in Connecticut. So that would be truck drivers. And then spouses of active duty military who have opted to continue to pay taxes in their home state instead of the state where their spouse is currently deployed are also not covered. So I mentioned covered public employees a few times. Let's talk about what that means. Non-unionized employees of the state of Connecticut are covered public employees, so they are included in coverage for this program. Unionized employees of the state of Connecticut who collectively bargain to be included in the program. And then employees of municipalities and local or regional boards of education. If the unionized employees do collectively bargain to be included, then all employees, both union and non-union, would be covered. So I mentioned that the contribution rate is half of 1%, so 0.05% of wages. Here are a couple of important notes about that. As I mentioned, your employer should be withholding that through a payroll deduction, and they remit those contributions quarterly to the Paid Leave Authority. The contributions are post-tax, and they are based on your wages as calculated for FICA purposes. There is a cap, so the contributions are capped at the Social Security contribution limit, which is currently $142,800. So even an employee earning more than that would not contribute more than the maximum, which works out to be $714 a year. So once your employer remits those funds to us, we receive them, we validate the information against other sources of data, we deposit those contributions into the Paid Leave Trust Fund, and that fund is the source from which we will be paying benefits starting in January. Now we want to talk a little bit about FMLA, which you may be familiar with, or you may have heard the acronym before, and Connecticut Paid Leave, and how those two different laws work together. So they are different laws and they provide different sorts of benefits and protections, but it's hard to talk about Connecticut Paid Leave without talking about Connecticut FMLA. So we want to review both of those. FMLA stands for the Family and Medical Leave Act. There is both a federal FMLA and a state of Connecticut FMLA, and both have been around since the 1990s. FMLA provides job protection. So if an employee needs to take time off of work for an eligible family or medical reason, if they're taking FMLA leave, they have job protection for when they return to their position to work. So they'll be returned to the same position with the same pay, terms and conditions, schedule, etc. However, any leave taken under FMLA is unpaid. So the employers may have policies for income replacement during the leave, but they're not required to. For example, some employers will provide 6 weeks of paid maternity leave. They don't have to do that, but some employers do choose to do that. Many employers will also either require or permit employees to use their accruals, so their sick leave, vacation leave, or any other type of PTO while they're out on leave. So again, FMLA provides job protection. There are some pretty significant changes that will go into effect on January 1st, 2022 that we want to make you aware of. So as of right now, Connecticut FMLA only applies to companies with 75 or more employees. That will be changing in January, and it will apply to companies with 1 or more employees. Right now, to be eligible for job protection under FMLA, a person needs to have worked for their employer for at least 12 months and at least 1,000 hours. That will be changing. Again, starting in January, after 3 months of employment, you will be eligible for job protection. And while your employer can still require you to use your PTO when taking leave, they can no longer, starting in January, require you to exhaust it. So they have to allow you to keep up to 2 weeks of leave for future use. So as an example, if you're having a surgery and your doctor says you're going to need to be out for 4 weeks to recover and you have 3 weeks of PTO accrued, the employer can say that you have to use 1 of your weeks of PTO, but they have to allow you to retain the other 2 weeks for future use. Now, Connecticut Paid Leave provides income replacement when you're taking time off of work for certain qualifying family and health conditions. It does not provide job protection. So Connecticut Paid Leave and FMLA work together, but one provides job protection, the FMLA portion, and Connecticut Paid Leave provides the income replacement. You might hear us say CTPL. We use it to refer to the law itself, to the program, and also to ourselves at the authority. So the Connecticut Paid Leave Act is the law that creates a source of income replacement benefits for workers who cannot work for certain family or medical reasons. You may also hear it referred to as PFML, or Paid Family and Medical Leave. Let's delve into the reasons that someone can take or apply for paid leave or for job protected leave under FMLA or Connecticut Paid Leave. The first reason is medical leave. Medical leave is leave taken by a worker for their own serious health condition to either recover from that condition or receive treatment. And pregnancy is considered a serious health condition, as is serving as an organ or bone marrow donor. The second type of leave is called bonding leave. And bonding leave is a leave that a parent can take to bond with a new child, either a child that was born, adopted, or that they are fostering. It does apply to both mothers and fathers, and it can be taken at any time during the 12 months immediately following the birth or the placement, if it's adoption or foster care. So even people who are having babies now in 2021 can apply for bonding leave in 2022, as long as it's within 12 months of their child's birth or placement. The third type of leave is called caregiver leave, and this is leave that a worker would take to care for someone in their family who is experiencing a serious health condition. One thing that's unique to Connecticut is family violence leave. So family violence leave is available for a victim of family violence, and some of the reasons they might take that would be to relocate, to obtain services from a victim service organization, or to seek medical or psychological care, as well as to attend court dates and hearings. And lastly, there are two different types of leave that apply to the military. One is called qualifying exigency leave. So this is leave that can be taken by a worker if their spouse, child, or parent is on federal active duty or has been notified of a call to duty. And this is to address certain issues that might come up when someone is notified that they're going to be deployed. So, for example, if the military member has been acting as the primary caregiver for their child, they might need to make alternative arrangements before deployment. And so that would be considered qualifying exigency leave. Military caregiver leave is like caregiver leave, but it is to be taken by a worker to care for a covered family member who's in the military and who has experienced a serious illness or injury that occurred in the line of duty. Now, talking about caregiver leave, there's a special note that I'd like to make you aware of. So under the Connecticut law, an employee can take caregiver leave and receive paid leave benefits for any of these relationships: a parent, a spouse, a son or daughter of any age, a sibling, a grandparent, a grandchild, or any individual related to the employee by blood or affinity. So what does that mean? Well, obviously the blood relationship is pretty self-explanatory, but related by affinity means that there's a significant personal bond that is like one of the family relationships that I just mentioned, regardless of any biological or legal relationship. So here are a couple examples. Say there's an aunt or an uncle who relies on the employee for unpaid care, and they have a strong relationship that is like that of a parent and a child. That could be considered relationship by affinity. A more common example might be an unmarried significant other of the employee. If they share a familial spouse-like relationship, maybe they own a home together, maybe they have children together, but they're not married. So legally, they have no relationship to each other. The relationship by affinity means that in this example, that person could take caregiver leave to care for that significant other. Let's go through the eligibility requirements to apply for either job protection under federal or Connecticut FMLA and income replacement under Connecticut Paid Leave. So federal FMLA, which again is job protected leave, and just a note on this is that federal FMLA applies to businesses with 50 or more employees. So in order to be eligible, a person must have been employed by their employer for at least 12 months and worked at least 1,250 hours in the 12 months immediately before their leave. Under Connecticut FMLA, starting in January, the employee must have been employed for at least 3 months, and there will no longer be any hours worked requirement. And then eligibility for Connecticut paid leave, there's an earnings requirement and a length of employment requirement. So the earnings requirement is that the employee must have earned at least $2,325 in the highest earning quarter of the first 4 of the past 5 quarters. That can be from 1 or more employers. So if you work 2 or 3 part-time jobs, as long as your total earnings for that period add up to $2,325 or more, that would be considered meeting the earnings requirement. And then in terms of length of employment, the worker must currently be employed in Connecticut by a covered employer or was employed by a covered employer during the 12 weeks immediately preceding leave. And then again, if it's a sole proprietor, self-employed individual, they must have opted into the program. And in that case, they must also be a Connecticut resident. So as you can see, because the eligibility requirements are different, it is possible to be eligible for job protection under FMLA, but not income replacement or vice versa. Now, how long can you either have job protected leave or how long can you receive income replacement benefits for? For federal FMLA, again, job protection, it's up to 12 weeks in a 12-month period for all reasons except for military caregiver leave, which there's 26 weeks available in a 12-month period for military caregiver leave under federal FMLA. Under Connecticut FMLA, starting in January, there will be up to 12 weeks available in a 12-month period with a couple of exceptions. So same as federal FMLA, there's up to 26 weeks in a 12-month period for military caregiver leave. And up to 12 days in a calendar year can be used for family violence leave. There's also the possibility of 2 additional weeks available for incapacity during pregnancy. Now, under Connecticut paid leave, starting in January, there will be up to 12 weeks of benefits available in a 12-month period for all leave reasons, including military caregiver leave. So in the case of military caregiver leave, someone might be eligible for up to 26 weeks of job protection, but they would only be able to receive up to 12 weeks of income replacement. There are up to 12 days of the 12 weeks available for income replacement for family violence leave. And there is also that possibility of the additional 2 weeks for incapacitation during pregnancy. Now, how do we go about applying for Connecticut paid leave benefits? You've heard me mention that we will begin accepting applications for benefits on December 1st for absences happening on or after January 1st. The benefits will be paid starting on January 1st, and there are a couple of different ways to apply for benefits, but we really want to encourage you to use our online portal. This will be the fastest and easiest way for you to submit your claim, and it'll also allow you to view the status of your claim, check on payments, upload any documentation, add time if, for example, your healthcare provider tells you that you'll actually need to be out longer than you had anticipated. You can also message with your case manager and view correspondence. If for some reason you don't want to use the online portal, we will accept applications via mail, email, fax, or telephone. If you know that you're going to want to submit an application and you want to use the online portal starting in December, I'm just going to walk you through the steps quickly of how you can create a Connecticut paid leave account now so that you're all ready to go come December 1st. So on our website, which is ctpaidleave.org, you would want to click on the blue sign-in button, which is on the upper right-hand portion of your screen. Once you click on that sign-in button, you'll be redirected to ct.gov. You'll see that you can either log into an existing account or you can create a new account. So down at the bottom of your screen, you'll want to click on Sign Up Now. And from there, you will sign up for a ct.gov account. So you'll be asked to enter your name, a username, your email address, a phone number if you wish, and a password. Just a couple of notes. Your username cannot be changed once you create it. So you want to make sure that you choose that carefully and write it down and keep it someplace safe for future reference. Once you click on submit, you will receive a sign up summary screen showing the information that you just entered. And then down at the bottom, there's a checkbox with the statement, I'm not a robot. So you want to check on that box and then click submit. From there, you will get a verification code sent to the email address that you just set up. Don't skip this step, because if you do skip it, then your account will not be set up and you won't be able to, you won't be ready to submit your claim come December. So open up your email that you just received, put in the 8-digit code in those boxes. And from there, you will receive a success message, which indicates that you have successfully set up your account. Then you can log in with the information that you just created, and you'll be redirected back to the Connecticut Paid Leave site, and you will know that you're signed in because that blue button that previously said sign in will now show your name. So again, if you know that you're going to want to submit a claim starting in December, we would highly advise that you go through this process now and set up your account so that you're ready. And on our YouTube page, which I will give you the information for at the end of the presentation, there is a tutorial video that walks you through how to do this. We know it's a bit of a longer process. It might take 5 to 10 minutes, but it's really important that we have those verification steps because we want to make sure that your personal information is well protected. There are a couple of different types of leave that you can take. So the first is called block leave, and block leave is continuous absence for a single qualifying reason. So for example, if your doctor says you need to have surgery, and after the surgery, you need 3 straight weeks out of work to recover, that would be block leave. Reduced schedule leave is leave that reduces a worker's usual number of working hours per work week or hours per day. So for example, if a person normally works 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, perhaps they're taking caregiver leave to care for an ill relative and they need to be off on Tuesdays to take that person to doctor's appointments. That would be considered reduced schedule leave. And then the third type of leave is intermittent, and that's leave in separate non-consecutive time periods, but for a single qualifying reason. So someone who suffers from migraines might need to take time off with intermittent leave, and it's unpredictable when they might suffer from a migraine. Here's the application process. As we talked about, we would first ask you to create an account with Connecticut Paid Leave. And then when you start the application process, as of December 1st, when you sign in and you click on submit a claim, you'll be redirected to AFLAC, which again is our third-party administrator. So you'll submit your claim to AFLAC. AFLAC will let you know what kind of documentation you need based on the type of leave you're taking. So you'll provide all the documentation requested. You'll also be given an employment verification form, which you will need to give to your employer and have them fill out and return to AFLAC. And on that form, your employer will verify your earnings, any other PTO that they might be offering you, your typical work schedule, etc. Once AFLAC has that, they'll notify you if there's any missing documents, and they will determine if you're eligible based on your earnings and employment and the reason that you're taking leave. If they determine that you're not eligible, they'll notify you, and you do have the right to request a reconsideration. If you are eligible and you're approved, AFLAC will calculate the benefit amount. So workers earning minimum wage will receive 95% of their typical weekly earnings. And workers earning more than minimum wage have a bit of a different calculation. But one thing to keep in mind is that the benefit is capped at 60 times the state minimum wage, which is currently $13 an hour. And then AFLAC will issue the benefit payment. There are 2 ways to receive benefit payments. One is direct deposit into the bank account, and the other is a Visa debit card. So you can choose whichever works best for you. Payments are made 2 weeks in arrears on Tuesdays. So for example, if you have leave approved for the week of January 3rd through 7th, your benefits would actually be paid out on January 18th. Now I'm going to walk you through the formula for the Connecticut paid leave benefit calculation. Before I go through it, I'll say I know that it can look very complicated. We have a very useful tool on our website that can help you get an estimate of what kind of payments you might be able to expect. And so don't worry about having to commit this to memory or try to figure it out on your own, but we do want you to understand where the calculations come from. So if you earn minimum wage, your benefit will be 95% of your base weekly earnings. And base weekly earnings are the number of hours worked per week times minimum wage. Right now, minimum wage is $13 an hour. So base weekly earnings, if someone works 40 hours a week times $13 an hour is $520, and 95% of that is $494 a week. That's the more straightforward calculation. If you earn more than minimum wage, the weekly benefit rate is 95% of 40 times the minimum wage, which is what we just looked at calculating, plus 60% of the difference between your base weekly earnings and the Connecticut minimum wage times 40 base weekly earnings. Again, weekly benefit payment is capped at 60 times minimum wage. So right now that's $780. As minimum wage increases over time, the maximum will also increase. So scenario one, which we walked through on the previous page, 40 hours a week times $13 an hour is $520, and 95% of that is $494. I've put a screenshot of our benefits estimator, which you can find on our website on the prepare to submit a claim page. And what you do is you go in there, you can select your pay period frequency of either weekly, monthly, or annual. Excuse me, I think it's weekly, quarterly, or annual. Enter your gross earnings. And then when you click on estimate, you'll see the benefit calculated down on the left side. Scenario two, if you earn more than minimum wage. So in this example, we have worker B who works 40 hours a week and earns $15 an hour. So worker B's base weekly earnings are 40 times 15, so 600. So the benefit is 95% of 40 times 13, so Connecticut minimum wage, plus 60% of the 600 base weekly earnings for this worker minus 520, which is 40 times the minimum wage. So we end up with 494 plus 48, which is 60% of the difference. So this worker would receive $542 weekly. Again, you can go to the website, you can plug in your base weekly earnings, and then you can see what you might be eligible for. We want you to keep in mind this is an estimate of potential benefits, and it can change based on a number of factors, including if you're getting any other kind of PTO or pay benefits while you're out from your employer. And on that note, let's talk about how paid leave works if your employer does provide you with benefits. So I mentioned, and I'll just mention again, that starting in January, your employer can require you to use your PTO, but they have to allow you to retain up to 2 weeks of it for future use. If your employer offers a short-term disability policy that you participate in, the interaction of the short-term disability benefits and the Connecticut paid leave benefits are really dependent upon the terms of that short-term disability policy. So we receive that question a lot in terms of, will short-term disability pay first? Will Connecticut paid leave pay first? And it's really not something that we can answer. That's something your employer would need to look at the policy and tell you how it's written. But here are a couple of different scenarios that we can take a look at. In the first scenario, the worker does not receive any employer-provided PTO. So if they don't work, they don't get paid. In that case, the worker would be eligible for the full amount of benefit for the full period of their leave. In scenario number two, the worker receives employer-provided PTO that's equal to the amount of their regular wages for the full time that they're out. In that case, the worker is not eligible for any Connecticut paid leave benefits. In scenario number three, the worker receives some employer-provided PTO, but it's less than their regular pay. So in this case, the worker would be eligible to receive Connecticut paid leave benefits when their leave begins, but the amount would be reduced because the total compensation can never exceed 100%. And then in the last scenario, the worker receives employer-provided PTO that's equal to their regular pay for a portion of the time they're out on leave. In this case, they would be eligible to receive the full amount of the weekly Connecticut paid leave benefit, but those payments would not start until the employer provided PTO ran out. A couple of notes: if you're trying to figure out what benefits you might receive from Connecticut paid leave, you should ask these questions of your employer. Will they require or permit you to use the employer provided PTO while you're out? And if so, are there any rules about the use of that time? So, for example, if you're taking caregiver leave to care for a parent or a child, can you use your own sick time during that leave, or is that not permitted under the company policies? And then lastly, if they offer a short-term disability policy and you participate in that plan, does the policy state that you have to exhaust all the other employer-provided PTO or Connecticut paid leave before short-term disability will begin paying you? Or will short-term disability reduce the amount that it pays by any Connecticut paid leave benefits, PTO, or other benefits? What are your responsibilities as a worker under Connecticut paid leave? So the first thing is that once you notify your employer of your need for leave, you'll want to begin a claim with Connecticut paid leave. And we talked about if you want to apply online, you would need to first create an account with us. After you submit your claim, your AFLAC case manager is going to give you a list of documents based on the type of leave you're taking. So you want to return all those requested documents in a timely manner. And you need to notify your AFLAC case manager of any changes to your leave. So if it needs to be extended, or if you're able to return to work sooner than you originally anticipated, you need to let us know that. Now, here's the process for Connecticut FMLA. Remember, because they're two different laws, just applying for Connecticut paid leave benefits does not mean that you're applying for FMLA and for job protection. So here's the process for job protection. First, you want to notify your employer about the need to take leave as soon as you can. So if you know that the leave is coming up, if it's foreseeable, we would like you to give them 30 days advance notice. As soon as possible if it's not foreseeable. Once you've let them know about your need to take leave, your employer has 5 days to let you know if your leave is eligible for job protection. This is not them giving you approval. This is just them letting you know if the reason that you're asking for leave is something that qualifies for job protection. They'll also let you know if you've already given them some documentation, if they need anything else in terms of a medical certification or anything like that. You do have 15 calendar days to provide the required documentation that your employer requests, and your employer may provide you with 15 additional days if for some reason you have trouble obtaining those documents. Once your employer has all the documents they've requested, they have 5 days from the receipt of those documents to notify you if your leave has been approved for FMLA. They should also let you know at that time if you need to use your PTO accruals, how or when you need to report in during your absence, as well as if you will need to provide a fitness for duty before you return to work. And then your employer will track your leave usage to make sure that you don't exceed your 12-week limit. Again, you would want to keep them appraised of any changes, just as we ask you keep us notified of any changes. So if you need to extend your leave or if you're able to come back earlier. And then upon your return, your employer is to return you to the same job with the same schedule, pay, and conditions. That's what job protection means, that you're able to go back to that same job. A couple of important notes. Even when you are approved for Connecticut or federal FMLA, you do have to follow your employer's attendance and call-in policies. And you do need to notify your supervisors when you're taking FMLA leave. You're responsible for providing your employer and us at the Paid Leave Authority, if you are also applying for income replacement, with complete and sufficient medical certifications or whatever other documentation is requested. Keep in mind that there may also be other laws beyond Connecticut FMLA that may apply to your situation. So we mentioned federal FMLA, and that applies to companies with 50 or more employees. There's also the Americans with Disabilities Act, which applies to companies with 15 or more. Pregnancy Disability Act applies to companies with 3 or more. And the Connecticut Fair Employment Practices Act also applies to companies with 3 or more employees. And with those last 3 that I mentioned, leave may be considered a reasonable accommodation. And then lastly, there's workers' compensation, which applies to on-the-job injuries or illnesses. So that can provide income replacement as well as job protection. Someone who is receiving workers' compensation benefits cannot also receive Connecticut paid leave benefits at the same time, though. And one really important note is, even if for some reason you don't want your leave to be designated as FMLA, it's your employer's right and responsibility to document that time as FMLA if indeed it does qualify. So lastly, I just want to point you to some additional resources where you can get more information. I know that I have just given you a lot of information to think about. The best place to go would be our website. It's ctpaidleave.org. We have, if you go under the tab called the process, there's a for employees page, and there's also a prepare to submit a claim page where you can get a lot of information. And that prepare to submit a claim page is where that benefits estimator is that I showed you. We also have a YouTube page, and there are a lot of really helpful videos there. We are on most of the major social media platforms and would recommend that you follow us there because we do disseminate information in that way as well. If you have questions, we would love for you to reach out to us. We don't have a call center, but we do have a contact us portal on our website where you can go and submit a question. If you would prefer to speak to someone, you can indicate that in your submission and someone will call you back within 48 hours. And we do have representatives who can communicate in both English and Spanish if you have a preference. We also have probably a couple of hundred frequently asked questions on our website, as well as those videos that I mentioned, which can be really helpful. And so with that, we'll conclude this presentation. Would love to answer any questions that may have come in that weren't addressed. We know that this is a lot of information. It's brand new, and we here at the Authority are here to help you through it. We're here to answer any questions that you have and make this a smooth process if you are indeed going to be applying for leave coming next year.
Thank you, Jessica. So I'm taking a look at our QA right now. We did get thank you. This is very helpful. You're most welcome. We're happy to do it. And for all of our attendees, if you have any questions, I mean, we have some time. We'd love to answer them for you. In the meantime, what I'm going to do is drop a link to our employees page in the chat so that you can go and check out the website and all of the information that we have on that site for our Connecticut workers. So bear with me for just a moment. My internet is a little slow.
And again, we really do want to emphasize the fact that applying online is going to be the fastest and easiest way for you to submit a claim if you are planning to do that. So if you want to head to the YouTube page and watch the video, it's about 5 minutes long, that will walk you through that process that I showed. And you can go and create an account right now, and then you'll be ready to submit your claim starting on December 1st.
Yes. And we do have a question here in the chat. Does Connecticut and federal FMLA run concurrently?
They can run concurrently, but I would say that that is probably best answered by your HR department and based on your particular situation. At the Connecticut Paid Leave Authority, we don't actually have any official responsibilities related to FMLA, but as I said, it's really difficult to talk about Connecticut Paid Leave without talking about FMLA. So I would advise going to the Connecticut Department of Labor website if you'd like to get more information about FMLA specifically.
Thank you, Jess. All right, well, it looks like that concludes our questions for today. If any of you do have more questions, please utilize our contact us portal at ctpaidleave.org. And thank you so much for joining us. Thanks, Jess.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.